You know, coins are like time capsules, tiny metal witnesses to history. And few are more common yet more fascinating than the 1976 Lincoln Memorial Cent. It might seem ordinary, just a penny, but once you dig into its story, its design, its variations, its rarity, you find layers of intrigue. Today, we explore every corner of the 1976 cent, how and when it was made, what it looks like, how much it weighs, what the symbols mean, what makes some specimens worth serious money, and what the market is doing today. Let's start at the beginning. The year is 1976. It's America's bicentennial year, 200 years since the Declaration of Independence in 1776. Everyone is celebrating. There are special bicentennial quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins. But the penny, though not changed for bicentennial design, is part of the backdrop. Millions and millions are minted, part of everyday commerce, but still part of the era's coin production. The Lincoln Memorial reverse design has been in place since 1959, replacing the earlier wheat ears reverse from 1909 to 1958. The obverse still bears Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909, with the date, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the mint mark. On the reverse is the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo in 1959, with "United States of America, e pluribus unum," and 1 cent around the rim. The coin is smooth-edged, nothing fancy there. Coin week +1 now. 1976 means it was struck at the Denver Mint. Mintage numbers are huge. For that year at Denver, they struck 4,221,592,455 business strike Lincoln Memorial cents. That is over 4 billion. Wikipedia +2 Coin week +2 because so many exist, most are very common. That abundance is the key to why most are low in value, just face value or a little above. Coin identifier +3 Coin week +3 Sell rare coins +3 Let's talk physical specs. The 1976 Lincoln Memorial cent weighs about 3.11 grams. Its diameter is 19.05 millimeters, about 0.75 inches. The edge is plain, smooth, as expected for pennies of this type. The alloy is the classic pre-1982 bronze, 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc. Coin week +1 The designs, obverse with Lincoln's bust facing right, date 1976, to the right of the bust. "In God We Trust." Arced above, "Liberty," to the left. Reverse showing the Lincoln Memorial Building in center, with 1 cent beneath it and "United States of America" around above. "E pluribus unum" between top of memorial and the USA legend. The initials of designers, Brenner, VDB, are placed under Lincoln's bust after being re-added, originally present on first 1909 issue, then removed, then reintroduced in a different spot. Gasparo's initials appear on reverse at lower right of the memorial. Coin week so far, standard info. But what about rarity, valuable varieties, mistakes, and market extremes? Because this is where some pennies stop being just a coin you find in your pocket and start being serious collector's items. First, conditions, grades, matter a lot. A circulated 1976 penny, one that has been used in everyday cash transactions, will typically only be worth face value, 1 cent, maybe a few cents above if condition is decent. But when coins are uncirculated, never used, sharp details, good luster, or certified by grading services such as PCGS or NGC, prices rise. For example, a 1976 MS 66 RD, mint state 66, red finish, might go for around $40. Coin week in higher grades, e.g. MS 67 RD, prices can be significantly higher, though these coins are extremely rare. Coin week some sales have been in the several $100s if the specimen is top-notch. Coin week second, proof coins. There are 1976 S-proof Lincoln Memorial pennies. These were specially made for collectors, struck on specially prepared planchets, often with mirror-like surfaces. Proof-like or cameo qualities raise value. For example, Some proof coins or deep cameo proofs can reach into triple digits in dollars depending on grade. Coin value checker +2 NGC +2/3, error, and variety coins. Sometimes coins are misstruck, struck off center, with dyed breaks, wrong planchets, etc. These anomalies are rarer and can be very valuable. To give a few examples, a penny with 50% off-center and visible date could be worth maybe $50 to $110. Ones with more extreme off-centering or other dramatic errors can draw higher. Coin value checker. There are also coins struck on wrong planchets, for example a penny struck on a nickel blank, which are extremely rare and valued well more. Coin value checker. A specimen of 1970-60 struck on a nickel planchet was listed, when found, for over $1,200. Coin value checker. Fourth, condition extremes, and certification. The very top graders looking for MS-67 or even higher, if there is an MS-68 someday, can push prices much higher. But the market for those is thin, few buyers, coin must be essentially perfect. Coin week. The risk for grading costs versus value return is real. A coin might come back slightly lower than expected, reducing price. So many collectors weigh that carefully. Coin week. Fifth, market condition, supply and demand. Because so many were made, even very early in 1976, the supply in decent condition is large. For common coins, collectors tend to prefer coins with full red color. RD is designation for red coloration, meaning much of the original copper luster is preserved, strong strike, few marks, good centering, etc. Coins that are brown, where copper has oxidized or darkened, are less desired, so their values are lower. Proof or proof-like coins are a different category. So to find one in MS-67 RD is like searching for a needle in a haystack. Coin week. When we talk about the 1970-60 Lincoln cent, we're not just talking about a sliver of copper. We're talking about a story of a nation, a minting system, a global copper market, and the dreams and legends that cling to tiny coins. Imagine the Denver Mint in 1976, massive coining presses hammering down planchets by the billions. The smell of machine oil, the roar of dies striking blanks at lightning speed. Copper planchets fed into the Schuler presses, blanking presses punching out discs from copper strip stock, annealing them in industrial furnaces to soften the metal, then cleaning in acid baths, then drying, then striking. Each coin born in an instant of pressure, about 60 tons of force slamming Lincoln's profile on one side and the Lincoln Memorial on the other. That instant of impact creates the luster, the shine collectors love, the radial flow lines in the copper. Billions of coins produced, tumbling into huge bins, clanging against each other, getting microscopic nicks that would one day be called bagged marks by graders. The Denver Mint was founded back in the 1800s to process gold and silver from the Rocky Mountains, but by 1976 it was a high-tech mass production powerhouse. The mint mark, D, stamped on the die identifies its birthplace. The obverse design by Victor David Brenner had been on the cent since 1909, making it the longest-running design in U.S. coinage history. Brenner was a Lithuanian immigrant who created Lincoln's portrait from a photograph. His initials, VDB, sparked controversy when they first appeared on the 1909 cents in large letters, leading the mint to remove them, then restore them in small form on the bust shoulder. On the reverse, Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design replaced the classic wheat ears reverse in 1959, commemorating the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. If you look closely at the memorial design, you can even see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial between the columns, an astonishing miniature detail struck into every cent from 1959 through 2008. Each 1970-60 cent was made from 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, the classic bronze alloy. Copper prices were rising during the 1970s, and by the late 1970s the metal content value of a cent was approaching 1 cent. This is why, in 1982, the U.S. Mint changed cents to a copper-plated zinc core. So 1976 cents are the heavier, solid bronze type, weighing 3.11 grams. This weight is one of the first tests collectors do. Drop a 1976 penny on a hard surface, and you hear a distinct high-pitched ring if it's solid bronze, a duller thud if it's zinc. The coin is 19.05 millimeters in diameter, 1.55 millimeters thick, and has a smooth edge. All this seems small, but every measurement matters to graders and collectors. When you hold a 1976 D Lincoln Memorial cent in your hand, you're holding the end product of a complex sequence of metallurgical and artistic steps, each of which can affect its eventual value in subtle ways most people never imagine. It all begins not with a coin but with a die. Dies are the steel punches that strike the coin's design into blank planchets. In 1976, the Mint used a multi-step hubbing process to make dies. A large master hub bearing the positive design was pressed into a master die to make a negative. Then that die made working hubs, which in turn made the working dies that struck coins. Each hubbing involved multiple impressions under immense pressure. If alignment slipped between impressions, doubling could occur, creating a double die variety. Collectors spend hours with microscopes searching the letters of Liberty and In God We Trust for signs of doubled lines, because a strong doubled die can multiply a coin's value 100-fold. On most 1976 cents, the design is normal, but a few subtle double dies exist, and specialists catalog them with numbers like DDO001 or DDR002. Only trained eyes can tell genuine hub doubling from strike doubling, which is just a flat shelf-like blur caused by die bounce. True doubled dies show separation lines and notching on serifs. As the working dies struck millions of coins each, they gradually wore down. Fresh dies create razor-sharp details and strong luster. Worn dies make mushy, dull coins. Sometimes dies crack as they fatigue, producing raised, jagged lines called die cracks. Sometimes bits of die metal break away entirely, creating raised blobs on the coin called die chips or cuds. These are errors that collectors prize. A dramatic cut obliterating part of In God We Trust, or 1 cent, can make a common cent worth $50 or $100. These errors become like fingerprints of a particular die's last moments. Every 1976 cent carries subtle die markers that advanced collectors use to link coins to specific dies. It's like forensic science on copper. Then there's planchet preparation. Each cent began as a strip of copper rolled to the right thickness, then fed through blanking presses that punched out discs called blanks. Those blanks were tumbled, annealed to soften them, cleaned, then dried. If a blank skipped the cleaning stage, it might be struck with oily residue, causing weak strike or missing detail. If the strip had a flaw or impurity, it could create laminations, flaky peeling surfaces. Those are mint errors too. Sometimes a wrong metal strip got mixed in, and a cent was struck on a dime planchet of 90% silver or a nickel planchet of 75% copper 25% nickel. Those rare wrong planchet errors can be worth hundreds or even thousands, especially if they're authenticated. That's why serious collectors weigh their coins precisely to 0.01 gram on digital scales. A normal bronze cent is 3.11 grams, plus or minus tolerance. A dime planchet weighs 2.27 grams, a nickel planchet 5.00 grams. If a 1976 weighs way off from 3.11, it's worth investigating. Once struck, the coins were ejected into bins. That's where they often pick up bag marks, tiny nicks from hitting each other. Those marks lower grade. Luster is the silky radial glow that flows from the center to the rim when you tilt a coin under light, created by the metal flowing under the die strike. If that luster is broken by wear, even microscopic, the coin is no longer mint state. That's why graders examine high points like Lincoln's cheek and jaw for rub. Many coins that look shiny to beginners are actually AU, about uncirculated, and not MS, mint state. That difference can be the gap between 1 cent and $50. True mint state coins have untouched luster swirling evenly over the whole surface. Color is equally crucial. Fresh copper is bright red. As it oxidizes, it turns brown. Graders give RD, red, to coins with at least 95% original red color, RB, red-brown, for 5% to 95% red, and BN, brown, for under 5% red. A 1970-60 and MS-66 BN might be worth a few dollars, but an MS-66 RD could be worth 40 or 50. An MS-67 RD hundreds. The same grade number can hide huge price differences just based on color. That's why advanced collectors store their coins in inert holders, in dry low-light environments, because copper keeps reacting to air for decades. Even a fingerprint's moisture can leave dark spots that ruin red color. Some coins that were blazing red in 1976 have toned to brown today, silently losing most of their market value. The irony is that age, which many people think creates value, often destroys it for copper. Survival of red coins is rare, and rarity drives price. Toning can sometimes increase value though, if it's beautiful. Rainbow or iridescent toning with blues, purples, and golds can attract bidding wars, especially on proof coins. But artificial toning exists too, so graders are cautious. They use experience and chemical knowledge to tell if colors formed naturally over decades or were faked with heat or chemicals. A naturally rainbow-toned 1976 proof in PR68 DCM could bring strong prices, while an artificially colored one might be rejected. Let's also understand how the coin market evolved. In the 1970s, coin collecting boomed during the bicentennial. Millions of Americans bought proof sets, mint sets, and saved shiny coins. But most saved pieces are only average quality. In the 1980s and 1990s, the grading services PCGS and NGC standardized third-party certification, creating the modern market. Now, collectors chase the highest graded, top pop, coins for registry sets. That's why one 1970-60 and MS-67 RD can sell for hundreds, while another MS-65 RD sells for a few dollars. The grade label in a plastic slab drives price. Population reports show how many coins exist at each grade. If PCGS says only 3 exist in MS-67 RD and none higher, competition for them skyrockets. If more are found and certified, prices can drop. So values are not fixed, they move with grading populations. A collector who thinks they found a $195 million penny might actually have a 1-cent coin, unless it's a top population miracle. The economics of copper also play a subtle role. In 1976, copper was around 60 cents per pound. Today it's several dollars per pound. A 1970 60-cent has about 2.95 grams of copper, or about 0.0065 pounds, so its melt value is a few cents. U.S. law since 2007 bans melting cents or nickels for metal, but that melt floor still supports their collector value. Some people stockpile thousands of pre-1982 cents hoping the ban will lift. If it ever does, and copper prices spike, 1970 60 cents could gain a little more intrinsic value, though not millions. It shows how even global commodities markets intersect with tiny coins. In the quiet, climate-controlled rooms of America's top numismatic auction houses, coins like the 1970-60 Lincoln cent can transform from pocket change into high-stakes trophies. Imagine the scene. Bright spotlights on velvet trays, rows of bidders watching as the auctioneer lifts a tiny copper disc and announces its pedigree, its grade, its population rarity. The air hums with tension as bids flash on the screen. Heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, Legend Rare Coin auctions, these are the temples of modern numismatics, and their catalogs can turn an ordinary seeming cent into a coveted prize simply by the story they tell. The narrative matters as much as the metal. They photograph every glint of luster, describe the coin's color as blazing coppery fire, or fiery mint bloom, detail the razor-sharp strike on Lincoln's beard and the fully defined steps on the memorial. They mention the population report, how only 3 are known in this grade, how none finer have appeared at auction. The psychology of scarcity grips the bidders. Someone who might not have planned to spend more than a few $100s finds their hand rising past 1,000, then 2, then 3, simply because they fear this chance may never come again. That fear of missing out is the fuel of high-end coin markets, and it is how even a 1970 60 cent can become a star lot if it's the finest known, Behind those public auctions lie the private collectors whose passion built the Lincoln cent into one of the most studied series in all of numismatics. There was the legendary Dr. Sheldon, who helped develop the 1 to 70 grading scale that still governs values today. There was Joseph Whitman, whose Whitman albums encouraged millions to collect cents from pocket change, sparking the coin boom of the 1950s and 1960s. There was Robert Hendershot, who built one of the first complete high-grade Lincoln cent sets ever assembled. More recently, registry set titans have competed to assemble the highest-graded complete Lincoln memorial cent sets, spending small fortunes to secure top pieces. They know that even common dates like 1970-60 become trophies at the highest grade. Their competitive spirit drives prices far above what casual collectors expect. These collectors have their coins graded by PCGS or NGC, encapsulated in tamper-proof holders with unique serial numbers, and tracked in online registries that publicly rank the finest sets. Prestige becomes part of value. Owning the number 1 ranked set is like winning a championship. It gives these tiny copper discs an aura of elite status. But auction drama and registry glory are only part of the story. Underneath, the experts who authenticate and grade these coins rely on astonishingly fine diagnostics invisible to casual eyes. They study die states, the gradual wear of a die through its life. A fresh die leaves bold, crisp details. A middle die state might show faint die polishing lines. A late die state shows flow lines, die cracks, fading details. These stages can help prove a coin's authenticity and even link it to other known examples. Experts also study strike pressure. The Denver Mint in 1976 sometimes varied the tonnage on presses. A strong strike forces metal fully into the deepest recesses of the die, creating sharp hair strands on Lincoln's portrait and complete steps on the memorial. Weak strikes leave mushy detail even if the coin is uncirculated. So 2 coins in the same grade can look different, and savvy collectors will pay more for the sharper strike. Some even track which working dies produce the sharpest coins and hunt only those. They look for die markers, tiny raised dots, fine scratches, or microchips unique to each die. Under high magnification, these act like fingerprints. Advanced collectors catalog known dies with photographs, building reference databases. When they see one in an auction, they can say, "That's the early die state of working die number 54 from the 1970-60 run." And they know it might be capable of MS-67 quality while others aren't. This level of study is invisible to most of the market but drives elite collecting. Experts also use light in specialized ways. They tilt coins under pinpoint halogen lights, fiber optic lamps, or even raking LED beams to detect hairlines or luster breaks invisible in normal lighting. They examine the cartwheel effect, the way luster radiates from the center when the coin is tilted. A smooth, uninterrupted cartwheel means unbroken mint luster, a key to confirming mint state. Even a faint disturbance can mark a trace of circulation where that downgrades a coin from MS to AU. That difference can cut value by 90%. It shows how fragile high value really is. A single brush of a fingertip decades ago can be the difference between a cent worth 1 cent and a cent worth hundreds. Market values themselves follow cycles. Lincoln cents surged in popularity during the 1970s bicentennial, then cooled, then revived with the rise of third-party grading in the 1990s. Since then, high-grade modern coins have formed a niche market. Price graphs show that MS-66RD and MS-67RD modern cents spike when registry competition heats up, then flatten when more examples are certified. This has happened to 1970-60 before. When the first MS-67RD appeared, it brought strong money, then later sales dipped as more surfaced. This means anyone buying a high-grade 1970-60 must understand market timing. It is not enough to own a rare coin, one must sell it when demand peaks. Some dealers deliberately withhold top pop coins from the market for years, waiting until population reports show none available, then release them to trigger bidding wars. It is a game of patience and strategy. The coin itself doesn't change, the story and the market mood do. There is also the quiet role of grading fees. It costs money to submit coins to PCGS or NGC, often $20 to $50 per coin or more. If a 1970 D grades MS65 RD worth $10, the submitter loses money. If it hits MS67 RD worth hundreds, they profit. So collectors gamble, sending in dozens of coins hoping a few hit the jackpot grade. This creates a self-selection effect. Only the very best-looking raw coins get submitted, which keeps the certified population of top grades very low, preserving scarcity and value. That's why raw 1970 cents almost never sell for hundreds. They must be graded first. The slab creates the value. Without the grade label, buyers assume it's just a cent. This grading economy quietly shapes the entire market for 1970 cents. Beyond markets and microscopes lies the mystery of the future. Where will 1970 values go in the decades to come? Many experts predict that as older collectors age out of the hobby, demand for common-date Lincoln cents may soften. But they also note that registry competition and the sheer cultural icon status of the Lincoln cent will sustain interest. And as more coins tone or get damaged over time, surviving red gems may become relatively scarcer, supporting values. If copper prices rise sharply or the US eventually retires the cent, public nostalgia might also boost values. Some dream that when the last cent is struck, collectors will scramble to assemble perfect sets, and prices for older dates like 1970 will rise. No one can know, but the possibility keeps collectors engaged. Every perfect coin locked away in a vault becomes a time capsule of potential future value. Through all of this, what keeps people enchanted is the paradox at the heart of coins like the 1970 cent. It is both mass-produced and unique. Billions exist, yet each coin has its own journey, its own tiny differences. One might have been in a child's piggy bank in 1976, another in a space shuttle vending machine in the 1980s, another buried in soil until its copper turned green, another tucked in a collector's vault glowing bright red for half a century. They are fragments of human history, compressed into copper and time. And once in a while, one of them emerges, blazing and flawless, to remind everyone why people love coins at all, not because they are worth millions, but because they carry a universe inside something so small. And so, the hunt continues. Somewhere out there, a collector is tilting a 1970 under a lamp, watching the luster whirl like a cartwheel, their heart pounding as they imagine it might be the one. Maybe it will grade MS67 RD. Maybe it will be the top pop. Maybe in that moment, it will feel worth $195 million, not in the market, but in the imagination, and that is where all great coin stories are born. A coin's value lives partly in copper and partly in dreams. That is what makes the 1970 cent eternal. Deep inside the vaults of advanced grading laboratories, under the cold glow of fiber optic lamps, coins like the 1970 Lincoln cent are examined with an intensity usually reserved for priceless paintings or ancient relics. The graders wear magnification loupes like surgeons. At 5x, 10x, 20x magnification, they search every millimeter of copper surface for the faintest clues to a coin's story. They know that under high pressure the steel dies used to strike coins sometimes needed maintenance. Mint workers used fine abrasive stones or wire brushes to polish clogged dies. These left faint die polishing lines, thin, straight scratches incised into the die surface, which then appear as raised lines on the coin. Under the microscope, these look like hair-fine filaments shimmering across the fields. On the 1970 these polishing lines can help pinpoint which working die struck a coin and in what stage of its life. Early polishing lines often run radially, while later ones appear haphazard from rushed maintenance. Graders record these like forensic detectives. If they see the same cluster of lines in the same position on two coins, they know those coins are die siblings. This knowledge lets them detect counterfeits too. Counterfeiters may attempt to copy a rare top-pop 1970 cent by creating a die from a genuine coin, a process called die transfer. But their copy usually lacks the ultra-fine original polishing lines or reproduces them blurred. Real coins show microscopic raised lines that counterfeit molds cannot replicate sharply. It is this dance of microscopic details that separates a cent worth a penny from a cent worth a fortune. The graders also study flow lines, microscopic radial ridges caused by metal stretching outward from the strike's force. Under raking light, these lines form the famous cartwheel luster. On genuine uncirculated 1970-60 cents, the cartwheel spins across the whole surface uninterrupted. Counterfeits often show dead or waxy luster because they are cast or struck from worn dies that no longer create strong metal flow. This is why experienced numismatists can often spot fakes by simply rotating them under a pinpoint light. They don't just see color, they see movement. Real coins flash as the luster bands catch the light like spokes on a wheel. That living motion is almost impossible to counterfeit perfectly. Then comes the analysis of strike pressure. The Denver Mint's presses in 1976 struck cents at about 60 to 70 tons of pressure. But variations occurred. If pressure was too low or the die spacing slightly off, the strike would be soft. Lincoln's hair might lack detail, the lettering might be weak. If the strike was too heavy, the design could appear flattened from metal flow. Top grade 1970-60 cents usually show a Goldilocks strike, not too weak, not too heavy, just enough to bring out every line of Lincoln's portrait and every brick of the memorial. Some advanced collectors measure this indirectly by looking at the memorial steps. Fully struck steps are rare on circulation strikes. When present, they can signal a special early die strike, and such coins often grade higher. So the elite search for full step memorials the way Jefferson nickel collectors hunt for full steps on Monticello. It's another hidden layer of rarity invisible to casual eyes. But even the best struck coin can hide danger. Counterfeiting has evolved. Some forgers take genuine lower grade 1970-60 cents, strip their surfaces, and artificially enhance them to appear red and mint state. They use chemical dips, abrasives, or copper plating to create fake luster. Experts catch these tricks by looking at the way light breaks across the surface. Artificially brightened coins often have dull high points and uneven color that pools in crevices. Under magnification, real mint luster looks like fine radial ripples, while cleaned coins look glassy or etched. Others try to remove contact marks to improve grade, a process called coin doctoring. They may use tiny tools to push metal back into scratches, or laser welders to fill nicks. Under high magnification and angled light, graders see these as unnatural surface distortions or texture mismatches. This is why grading firms photograph coins and store images, to catch altered resubmissions. A coin that has been cleaned, recolored, or doctored loses its certification and its value plummets. Authenticity is everything. A single suspicion can collapse a coin's price from thousands to cents. And yet, amid this hyper-precise science, the dream persists that one 1970-60 could somehow bring $195 million. It sounds impossible, and economically it almost is, but consider the psychology of extreme collectibles. The most valuable coins in history did not reach their prices because of metal content, or even absolute rarity alone, but because of narrative power. The 1933 Double Eagle sold for over $18 million not because of its gold but because it was declared illegal to own, and became a forbidden treasure. The 1794 Flowing Hair dollar brought over $10 million because it was believed to be the very first silver dollar struck by the United States. If somehow a 1970-60 Lincoln cent were proven to be the first one ever struck that year, documented as the ceremonial first strike from the Denver Mint, preserved perfectly in blazing red, with photographic and eyewitness provenance from the mint ceremony itself, its value would explode not as currency but as national history. If two billionaire collectors both desired to own the first bicentennial-era Lincoln cent, their competition could drive the price far beyond rational levels. It would not be about copper, it would be about prestige, about owning a singular icon. In theory, if media attention amplified the sale, if it became a symbol of American heritage, if museums competed, if it were framed not as a coin but as an artifact of the nation's 200th birthday, then yes, in some fevered speculative moment, it might crest at unimaginable figures like $195 million. Not for its numismatic value, but as art, as history, as spectacle. This is the strange alchemy of value at the highest levels. It ceases to be about the thing and becomes about the story. Such a scenario would require orchestration. A marketing campaign framing the coin as a national treasure. Exhibitions on tour at the Smithsonian and the Denver Mint Museum. Documentaries showing its microscopic perfection, its survival story. Interviews with experts declaring it the finest Lincoln cent ever made. A crescendo of publicity until the coin became myth. Then an exclusive auction in a marble hall with velvet curtains and tuxedoed bidders, each a billionaire seeking immortality through ownership of this tiny relic. At that moment, the coin would transcend its material and become pure symbol. And someone might pay anything. This shows that price is a social phenomenon, not just a number. The same coin in a pocket is worth 1 cent. On a pedestal with the world watching, it could become priceless. This is the ultimate secret of numismatics. The greatest value comes not from metal or mintage, but from meaning. Meanwhile, most 1970-60 cents live quiet lives in drawers and jars, their copper surfaces darkening, their edges nicked from decades of clinking together. They will never see a microscope or an auction stage. But they are the raw sea from which that one mythical perfect gem might surface. That is why collectors search, because every extraordinary coin was once just an ordinary coin until someone looked closely. The dream of finding that flawless blazing red cent keeps thousands of eyes scanning every roll, every bank bag, every estate hoard. Most will find nothing but brown copper. A few will find a sparkle that could change their fortunes. And in that moment of discovery, their hearts will race, and the world will fall away, and they will feel the ancient thrill that has driven treasure hunters for centuries. That thrill is what gives the 1970-60 Lincoln cent its secret power. Not its metal, not its age, not its grade, but the way it makes people dream. And so, in vaults and attics, in pockets and museums, the 1970-60 continues its quiet orbit through history, waiting for the day when one of its kind might ignite the world's imagination and climb to heights no one believed possible. Maybe it will never reach $195 million. Maybe it will. What matters more is that someone believes it might. That belief is the spark from which legends are born, and that spark is what makes this humble copper disc eternal. Somewhere in a sealed room of a grading company's research division, a machine is watching a 1970-60 Lincoln cent under blazing light, rotating it, scanning it with lasers, recording millions of microscopic data points from its copper surface. This is not science fiction. Artificial intelligence is already entering numismatics, and it is changing how coins like the 1970-60 will be valued in the future. Human graders once judged a coin's grade with the naked eye and loops, and even today, though they use magnification and bright lights, their judgments carry some subjectivity. Two experts might grade the same coin MS66RD or MS67RD depending on subtle interpretation of luster and marks. But the AI systems now being developed scan a coin in ultra-high resolution, mapping the depth of every contact mark, measuring the uniformity of luster, and comparing it to vast libraries of graded reference coins. They can detect minute breaks in luster invisible to human eyes. They can quantify redness by analyzing the exact spectral signature of the copper surface. And they can assign grades with machine precision. As these systems improve, they may create an entirely new level of ultra-consistent grading. Imagine a future where a 1970-60 cents grade is not an opinion but a verified scientific measurement down to the micron. That could radically shift the market. The tiny human variance that sometimes lets one coin sneak into MS67RD while another similar coin stays MS66RD might disappear. The population of true top-grade coins would stabilize, possibly even shrink if AI is stricter. This would make the surviving MS67RDs and above far rarer and more valuable. Paradoxically, AI might make the best coins worth even more by proving how few truly flawless examples exist. But grading is only part of the transformation. Blockchain technology could make every important 1970-60 cent a permanent digital entity. Already, some grading companies are experimenting with blockchain-based coin registries where each certified coin's data, images, grade, serial number, ownership history, is embedded in an immutable ledger. In the future, when a 1970 60 cent is graded, its surface skin could be turned into a unique digital fingerprint stored on the blockchain, proving forever which exact physical coin it is. No more switching coins in slabs, no more counterfeiting serial numbers. Every transfer of ownership would be recorded publicly. This could bring a new level of trust to high-end sales. Collectors could buy $1 million 1970 60 cent from across the world, confident that the coin is genuine and the title of ownership will transfer instantly via blockchain smart contract. This transparency could attract big investors who currently avoid coins because of authenticity risk. Imagine hedge funds or sovereign wealth funds adding heritage collectibles to their portfolios, buying rare Lincoln cents the way they buy art or rare wine. A blockchain registry could turn rare coins into tradable global assets, making it possible for someone in Tokyo to own a share of a 1970 60 cent locked in a New York vault, its value tracked in real time. This financialization could drive prices far higher than today because billions of new dollars of capital would be able to flow into the coin market safely and instantly. As these coins become more digital in their identity, they may also become more visible than ever before. Virtual reality could carry the 1970 60 cent into the minds of millions who might never hold a real one. Picture a future museum in the metaverse where visitors from every country put on headsets and walk through a gigantic shimmering virtual Lincoln cent, every letter 10 feet tall, every die crack glowing, every microscopic polishing line magnified like rivers of copper. They could toggle between grades to see how contact marks lower value, watch time-lapse simulations of copper toning from blazing red to dark brown, hear the click of Denver's coin presses from 1976 pounding metal into history. They could watch the exact coin surfaces of famous specimens scanned and recreated in perfect digital replicas they can rotate in midair. Such immersive experiences could spark new waves of collecting passion in people who have never touched a real coin. A teenager in another country might fall in love with the beauty of the Lincoln cent through VR and become a top collector 20 years later. This global cultural spread could massively expand the demand base for coins that are today mostly collected in the United States. More demand, same supply, the classic formula for higher prices. This convergence of AI grading, blockchain registries, and virtual exhibitions could also create entirely new market dynamics. Imagine a top pop 1970 60 cent with a flawless AI confirmed grade of MS68RD, its 3D skin stored on the blockchain, displayed in a virtual museum visited by millions, and owned collectively by thousands of investors through digital shares. It would become not just a coin but a cultural event. Media would report on its value fluctuations like a stock. Influencers would talk about owning a piece of the legendary 1970 60. And if its value surged, it could trigger waves of speculation, pulling the whole Lincoln cent market upward. At that point, the price of the coin would reflect not just numismatic rarity but also brand-like cultural capital, similar to how famous artworks appreciate beyond their material or aesthetic qualities. The 1970 60 could cross over from numismatics into the larger world of luxury and status assets. Even more futuristic, we may see coins gain embedded digital chips or nanotags that link them directly to their blockchain identities. A future 1970 60 might carry an invisible microtag that, when scanned, proves its authenticity instantly. This could stop counterfeiting forever. And it could allow coins to become interactive. Imagine a museum display where you tap your phone on the slab and instantly see the coin's full provenance, auction history, 3D surface map, and even a holographic replay of its journey from the Denver Mint in 1976 to today. This level of storytelling could make even casual viewers feel emotionally connected, turning more of them into buyers. Emotion is the core fuel of collectible markets, and technology will magnify it. All of this could gradually erode the old idea that coins are just static metal. The 1970 60 cent could become a living digital artifact with a permanent data soul. And that digital soul could survive forever, even if the physical coin is locked in a vault and rarely seen. The market could end up valuing the story and data of the coin as much as the copper. In that world, price ceilings could shatter. Today we think $195 million is impossible. But in a future where trillions of dollars of global capital seek cultural collectibles as inflation hedges, and where millions of digital investors want status objects with guaranteed authenticity, the unimaginable becomes possible. A single 1970-60 Lincoln cent could become the flagship of an entire new market, its value driven by emotion, scarcity, data security, and spectacle all at once. Yet even in that dazzling digital future, the magic will remain the same. A collector will still sit at a quiet desk, open an old coin roll, and tip out a river of copper discs, one by one, searching for that spark, that perfect red glow, that flawless strike, that whisper of immortality. Technology may change everything about how coins are bought and sold, but it will never change the heartbeat at the center of the hobby, the human thrill of discovery. That is what keeps the 1970-60 Lincoln cent alive, and that is what could one day carry it to heights the world has not yet imagined. There are collectors who do not sleep when they know a 1970-60 Lincoln cent they've chased for years is coming up for auction. They lie awake staring at the ceiling, their minds spinning through its luster, its strike, its population numbers, its price history. They rehearse their bids in silence like secret prayers. This is not mere hobby anymore, this is devotion. For them, the 1970-60 is not just a cent from 1976. It is the embodiment of everything they have hunted and hoped for. It carries the weight of childhood memories, of long nights hunched over magnifiers, of decades of searching through rolls and jars and bank bags. They remember the first time they saw that year on a coin as a child, when the world was new, and they kept it in a shoebox as their first treasure. Over time, that single cent became the spark of a lifetime's quest. They learned grading, luster, dye varieties, copper chemistry. They chased each upgrade, climbing from bronze circulated examples to red gems, then to certified mint state, then to the elusive near-perfect grades that few will ever touch. Every small victory brought a rush like lightning, every disappointment a hollow ache. The 1970-60 became the thread stitching their life together. For some, collecting becomes an obsession so total that it consumes everything around it. They spend their savings, skip vacations, sell cars, even mortgage homes to fund their sets. They track auction listings at dawn, email dealers in whispers, fly across the country to examine a single coin. They can describe the exact location of a tiny die chip on the B of Liberty on a rare variety, as if it were a loved one's face. They know the serial numbers of the finest graded specimens by heart, reciting them like sacred verses. They keep temperature and humidity monitors in their vaults, adjusting them like gardeners tending rare flowers, because they fear the red copper might darken even a shade. Their spouses sigh, their friends shake their heads, but the collectors press on, because deep inside they believe the perfect 1970-60 exists somewhere, waiting for them, calling like a lost star. There are rivalries in this world that outsiders never see. Two collectors might nod politely at coin shows while secretly waging a cold war for the same prize. They watch each other's registry scores like hawks. They outbid each other in auctions with smiles that hide clenched teeth. If one captures a top-pop 1970-60, the other will spend years trying to dethrone them, scouring the earth for a finer one. Sometimes they succeed, and the dethroned collector feels the quiet sting of defeat as their ranking slips, and their once shining treasure is no longer the pinnacle. Other times, they surrender and sell everything, exhausted, because chasing perfection has consumed them. And sometimes, something miraculous happens. Two rivals who have fought for years finally meet in person, and instead of anger there is only recognition, like two mountain climbers nodding on the same peak, knowing only they understand what it took to get there. But not all passion burns as rivalry. Some collectors are gentle caretakers. They see themselves as guardians of history, not competitors. They whisper to their coins like old friends. They never speak of market value. To them, their 1970-60 Lincoln cents are time travelers who survived half a century and deserve respect. They will never sell them, never grade them, never chase numbers. They slip them into soft holders and take them out on quiet nights to admire the way the copper glows under lamplight. They imagine the lives the coins passed through, the hands they touched. For these collectors, the 1970-60 is not a trophy or an investment, but a bridge to the past. It carries the pulse of 1976, the bicentennial parades, the music, the fireworks, the smell of summer grass. They hold it and feel the whole era humming inside it like a trap song. Then there are the dreamers. They are not wealthy, not experts, but they search anyway. They dump bank rolls on kitchen tables, their eyes wide as children's, hoping for magic. They don't care about population reports or market cycles. They chase the miracle, the idea that somewhere in this roll could be the one, the flawless blazing red 1970-60 that will change their lives. Most find only scratched brown cents and keep going anyway. They are the heartbeat of the hobby, the reason coins survive as more than just metal. They remind everyone that hope, not profit, is the true engine of collecting. Even if they never find their fortune, they hold each coin with wonder, and that wonder is priceless. But passion has shadows. Some collectors lose everything chasing perfection. They spend years assembling a set, only to see the market drop, their investments crumbling. Some grow bitter, their joy curdling into resentment. Some can't stop even when they want to, buying coins they can't afford, hiding bills, chasing the old thrill like gamblers at the edge of ruin. The 1970-60 becomes not a treasure but a trap, a copper siren pulling them under. Yet even then, they can't let go. Because the coin has become part of their identity, a mirror of their struggle, proof that they were here and they tried. And sometimes, in their darkest moments, a small copper cent in their hand still brings a flicker of light, and they remember why they started. In the end, every collector pours their soul into their coins. The 1970-60 Lincoln cent becomes not just a piece of metal but a vessel filled with their dreams, fears, victories, and defeats. It carries their fingerprints, their breath, their time. When they finally pass their collection on, to a child, to an auction, to the world, they are passing pieces of themselves. And those who receive the coins may never know the sleepless nights, the trembling hands at auction, the whispered hopes behind each slabbed red cent. But those emotions live on, invisibly etched into the copper like secret ghosts. That is the hidden truth of value. A coin's worth is not only in its rarity, or its grade, or its price. It is in the lives wrapped around it. The 1970-60 Lincoln cent is a small copper mirror reflecting human longing. It shows us how deeply people can love something so small, how fiercely they can chase beauty, how much meaning they can pour into a flicker of metal. And maybe that is why, when someone someday holds the finest 1970-60 ever struck, in perfect blazing red untouched by time, they will not just be holding a coin, they will be holding the echoes of every soul who ever searched for it. And in that moment, for them, it will be worth not just $195 million but everything. In the center of the 1970-60 Lincoln Memorial Cent, frozen forever in copper, is the face of Abraham Lincoln. His gaze is solemn, distant, quietly enduring. He has stared from billions of pockets and purses, vending machines and sidewalks, yet he never blinks, never fades. This tiny portrait is more than an engraving, it is a national icon condensed into a space smaller than a thumbnail. It represents the man who held the United States together when it was breaking apart, who spoke of liberty with words that still tremble in the air today. And in 1976, when this cent was struck, the nation was celebrating its 200th birthday, looking back on everything Lincoln fought for and forward to what America might still become. That bicentennial spirit seeps into every 1970-60 cent. Even though the cent did not carry the special bicentennial dual dates like the quarter, half, and dollar, it was part of the ocean of coins that passed through parades and fireworks, through hands waving flags, through stores draped in red, white, and blue. To hold one is to hold the pulse of 1976, the year America paused to remember itself. That cultural memory gives the 1970-60 cent a symbolic weight far heavier than its 3.11 grams of copper. When people see that date, they see more than numbers. They see bicentennial banners strung across small-town main streets, they hear brass bands and crackling fireworks, they smell hot dogs on summer grills. They remember their parents young and their grandparents alive. They remember America in its bicentennial costume, awash in nostalgia and pride. This emotion silently wraps around the coin like an invisible aura. A collector who seeks a flawless 1970-60 is not just seeking technical perfection, they are seeking to hold a piece of that lost moment, to preserve it against time. That is why the finest examples stir such desire. They are not just copper. They are capsules of national memory, untouched by the decades, carrying the bicentennial glow as if 1976 never ended, and Lincoln's presence magnifies that symbolism. The Lincoln cent is the longest-running design in U.S. coinage history, first issued in 1909 for the centennial of Lincoln's birth. By 1976, it had already endured for 67 years, and it would continue for decades more. That continuity gives it a mythic quality. Generations have grown up with Lincoln's face on their smallest coin, seeing him not as distant history but as a quiet companion in everyday life. His image has passed through wars, depressions, civil rights struggles, space landings, cultural revolutions. By 1976, he had become not just a president but a symbol of American resilience, unity, and moral striving. When a person holds a 1970-60 cent, they are touching that unbroken line from the Civil War to the bicentennial. It is as if Lincoln himself is watching across the centuries, reminding the country of what it once promised to be. This symbolic power can change how people see value. A coin that is just copper to one person becomes sacred to another because of what it represents. This is how cultural meaning creates markets. The 1933 double eagle became worth millions because it symbolized government authority and the end of the gold standard. The $1,804 became worth millions because it symbolized early American diplomacy. In the same way, a perfect 1970-60 could one day become priceless because it embodies both Lincoln and the bicentennial, two of the deepest currents in American identity. It could become not just a coin but a relic, a tiny shrine to the ideals of freedom and unity. Museums might desire it as a cultural treasure, not just a numismatic one. This is how prices can detach from metal and soar on symbolism. When people see a story, they see value, and few coins carry more story than the 1970-60 Lincoln cent. Even its reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, carries this symbolic charge. By 1976 the memorial had stood for over 50 years, the marble temple where Lincoln's statue sits brooding, where millions of visitors whisper as if in a cathedral. On the coin, it is shrunken to a fingernail's size, yet still solemn. Every brick line, every pillar, is engraved with reverence. The design shows the memorial from the front, as if inviting the viewer to walk inside, to approach Lincoln's statue. In the real memorial, carved into the walls, are the words of the Gettysburg Address and the Second Inaugural, words about sacrifice, liberty, and a new birth of freedom. Though the coin is too small to show those words, they live invisibly in its image. They give the reverse a silent gravity. In 1976, as America celebrated its 200th birthday, this image carried special weight, the reminder that the nation had survived its own near death because of Lincoln, and that it must keep striving to live up to his words. That invisible gravity clings to every 1976 cent. Even a worn one has it. A perfect one radiates it. Culture also shapes desire across time. As decades pass, objects from symbolic eras become more romantic. The bicentennial is already fading from living memory, becoming a story older generations tell. That fading makes its artifacts more precious. In 2076, on the tricentennial, a flawless 1970-60 might be seen not just as old but as antique, as a bridge back to the nation's 200th birthday. That anniversary could ignite demand. Television and VR could show the world the single finest 1970-60, glowing like frozen fire, as the ultimate symbol of the 1976 bicentennial. Schools could display it to teach history. It could become part of the national narrative, and in that narrative its price could become symbolic rather than rational. If the public sees it as a bicentennial cent, not just a cent, its cultural value could dwarf its metal or rarity. This is how stories transform objects into icons. Even the D-Mint mark ties it to place and culture. That tiny letter stands for Denver, a city at the heart of the American West, the land of mountains and railroads and frontier legends. In 1976, the Denver Mint was striking billions of coins for a country celebrating its history of expansion and endurance. That small D carries all of that silently. A person who grew up in Colorado might feel pride seeing it, a personal connection to the nation's story. Culture runs like electricity through these small details, invisible but powerful. When value climbs to the stratosphere, it is often this cultural electricity that lifts it, not metal or math. And so, the 1970-60 Lincoln cent stands not just as currency but as condensed culture, Lincoln's eternal gaze, the bicentennial's fireworks, the memorial's solemn pillars, the heartbeat of Denver, the echo of a nation trying to remember itself. When someone sees it not just as a coin but as a symbol, they begin to feel its true weight. And when enough people feel that weight at once, its price could leap beyond logic, carried by meaning. This is the final secret of the 1970-60. It is not only copper, not only rare, not only old. It is America in miniature, and things that carry a nation's soul can never truly be measured in dollars at all. It began in darkness. A blank copper disc lay on a steel feeder tray deep inside the Denver Mint, one of millions waiting to be struck. Around it thundered the machinery of a nation, hoppers clanging, conveyor belts rattling, presses hammering out coins with the force of lightning. The air was hot with oil and metal. The blank trembled as it slid down a chute into the jaws of a coining press built like an iron cathedral. Above it hovered two steel dies, one engraved with Lincoln's solemn profile, the other with the Lincoln Memorial's pillars. The feeder arm whisked the blank into position. In a flash, 60 tons of pressure slammed down. Metal flowed like liquid for an instant. Lincoln's face bloomed out of the copper in a burst of heat and force. The reverse appeared with perfect sharpness, every pillar razor crisp, every brick line clean. The D Mint mark nestled below the date, small and quiet, as if signing the birth certificate. The dies lifted, and there it was, a 1970-60 Lincoln cent, blazing red, flawless, still warm from the strike.it tumbled down a chute into a sea of its newborn brothers, thousands of copper suns clinking together. Machines scooped them into bins, counted them by weight, wrapped them in paper rolls stamped U.S. Mint Denver. Then forklifts moved the rolls to pallets, trucks carried the pallets out of the mint into the open world. For days they rattled across highways under the summer sun of 1976. Finally, our cent arrived at a bank in a small town in the American West, still glowing with mint luster, still perfect. It might have been handed out in change during a bicentennial parade, flags waving, drums pounding in the distance. A child might have held it up to the light, watching it sparkle, and tucked it into a pocket as fireworks crackled in the evening sky. Later that night, the child might have dropped it into a piggy bank shaped like a bald eagle, where it slept among dimes and nickels and quarters. Months passed. The child opened the bank and spent it on a pack of bubble gum at a corner store with red, white, and blue bunting still fluttering from July. The shopkeeper dropped it into a till, and its journey began. It rode from till to till, from pocket to purse, from soda machine to payphone. It lay in the linty depths of jeans during rock concerts, gas station stops, and first dates. It passed from a tired cashier's fingers to a truck driver's calloused palm at a midnight diner off Route 66. It clinked into jukeboxes, candy machines, laundromats, toll booths, tip jars. It was lost under couch cushions, found by toddlers, dropped on sidewalks, picked up by strangers. It crossed state lines unseen, carried in wallets and ashtrays and glove compartments. It saw the inside of lockers, lunchrooms, libraries, stadiums, motels. It felt the heat of summer dashboards and the cold of winter sidewalks. It heard decades of American voices, laughter, arguments, whispers, songs, muffled through denim and leather. Years rolled by. The red glow faded to brown. Tiny scratches spread across Lincoln's cheek. The crisp rims softened from thousands of impacts. By the late 1980s it was just another dull penny, unnoticed, nearly invisible. It spent a year buried under leaves in a park, turning dark and rough. A gardener's rake unearthed it. A jogger picked it up, rubbed it clean, dropped it in a coffee shop tip jar. It wandered again. In the 1990s it passed through fast food registers, school vending machines, gas station counters. It clattered across the metal counter of a video rental store while someone rented VHS tapes. It sat in a drawer while the world turned digital around it. By the 2000s, it was so worn it barely caught the eye. People stopped using pennies. Clerks tossed it in to take a penny cups. It almost slipped out of the human world completely. Then one day a coin roll hunter opened a bank box of cents at his kitchen table. He poured them into a tray and began sorting under bright light. His eyes were sharp from years of searching. He almost passed it over, so dark, so worn, but the date caught his eye. 1976D. Something about it stirred him. He looked closer. He saw it had full rims, solid details, and only surface grime. He dropped it into a jar marked older dates. Days later, he decided to clean out the jar. As he held the 1976D under a magnifier, he realized the dirt was hiding luster. He gave it a careful rinse in distilled water, blotted it gently. Copper shimmered through. It wasn't uncirculated, but it was far better than it had any right to be after 40 years. He smiled and slid it into a 2x2 holder, where it gleamed softly again, reborn. That small act saved it. It no longer wandered. It sat quietly in albums and trays while the world roared past. It watched the rise of smartphones, streaming, social media, electric cars. It outlived shops and malls and whole industries. It outlasted the hands that once spent it. The child who first held it grew up, aged, maybe passed away. Everyone who used it has forgotten it. But it remembers them. Their fingerprints are still etched in its copper, invisible but real. One day, decades later, another collector found it at a coin show in a dealer's bargain box, bought it for $1, and smiled as if he'd rescued an orphan. He sent it to a grading service just to see, and when it came back XF45 with surprising luster, he didn't care about the grade. He placed it in his display case among rarities worth thousands. It was the humblest coin there, but he showed it to everyone, telling its story. People stared not because it was rare, but because it had survived, against time, against wear, against forgetting. It had crossed half a century of hands to be here. And somewhere, perhaps in another story running parallel, another 1970-60 struck that same week in Denver never left its first paper roll. It lay untouched in a vault for decades, its copper still blazing red like the day it was born. Someday it might emerge, perfectly preserved, and the world might call it the finest known, worth a fortune. But even if it brings $195 million, it will not have the soul of the one that wandered, that lived, that carries invisible echoes of children, truckers, lovers, dreamers. Because value has two faces, one is rarity, and the other is journey. And this small 1970-60 Lincoln cent has carried a piece of America on its face, and America in its soul, all the way from that thunderclap in the Denver Mint to this quiet moment in your hand. Beneath the surface of the 1970-60 Lincoln cent, far below the gaze of Lincoln's portrait and the pillars of the memorial, there is a silent universe. It is made of atoms of copper, each one a tiny sphere of electric fire, packed so close they press against each other like dancers in eternal stillness. They vibrate endlessly, a quiet hum too small for any ear. They are older than mountains, older than Earth itself, born in the hearts of ancient stars billions of years before humans walked. When the Denver Mint pressed this cent in 1976, it did not create that copper. It merely gathered the ancient stardust and gave it shape, gave it meaning. The coin you hold is not just 3.11 grams of metal. It is the dust of exploded suns, forged into the face of Lincoln, pressed into the story of America. Time moves slowly in this atomic world. The copper atoms do not know years or centuries. They sit unmoving while human lives flash past like lightning. They outlast empires. They will still be here long after every person who ever touched the coin is gone. But even atoms are not untouched by time. Oxygen creeps in, stealing electrons, turning the surface darker. Sulfur whispers from the air, making brown shadows. Sweat leaves salts that bite into the copper's skin. Under a microscope, the once smooth surface becomes a landscape of craters and ridges. Luster, that magical shimmer of freshly struck metal, is only light reflecting off microscopic flow lines created by the minting strike. One careless rub erases them forever. This is why untouched coins seem to glow while worn ones go dull. Time and touch are predators. Every finger that holds a 1970 60-cent leaves oils that begin the slow collapse of its brilliance. Every vibration, every scratch, every collision with other coins erases tiny fragments of its surface, like invisible snow melting away. That is why pristine survivors are so rare. They are not just lucky, they are miracles of physics, protected from entropy as the decades nod at billions of their brothers. Scientists can measure this decay with terrifying precision. They can aim electron microscopes at a cent's surface and see single dislodged copper atoms. They can watch the slow bloom of oxidation molecules forming brown films only atoms thick. They can map the crystal structure of the metal grains and see how stress from the mint strike still echoes inside like frozen shockwaves. The 1970 60-cent is not just art, it is a frozen moment of violence. The split-second blast of 60 tons of force slamming copper into the shape of history. That moment is still frozen in its atomic lattice. Every ridge on Lincoln's cheek, every brick in the memorial, is held in place by invisible electrical bonds trillions of times a second. And yet, all of it hangs on a knife edge. A single careless cleaning with abrasive cloth can tear those bonds apart, leaving hairlines that destroy its grade. This is why collectors handle them like relics, wearing gloves sealing them in airless plastic tombs. They are not only protecting beauty, they are resisting the second law of thermodynamics, holding entropy at bay. Yet for all the science, the coin is still alive in a way no microscope can measure. It has absorbed decades of human heat. Touch leaves more than oils. It leaves memory. The warmth of hands seeps in, passes through, lingers as faint ghosts. People have measured that ancient coins sometimes carry micro traces of skin cells, dust, even pollen from long vanished summers. Perhaps inside this 1970 60-cent there is still the ghost of July 4, 1976, a molecule of barbecue smoke, a grain of bicentennial parade dust. These fragments drift within the coin like whispers. They have no price, but they give it soul. And maybe this is what value truly is, the place where atoms and memory meet. The coin is solid, measurable, metallic, and yet it carries dreams, which have no weight. It is both star metal and story, and that combination is what makes people fall in love with it. In the end, the 1970 60 Lincoln cent is a paradox, small but infinite, cheap but priceless, common but unique, fragile but immortal. Billions were struck, yet one perfect survivor could become the most valuable cent in history, worth $195 million not because of copper or rarity alone but because of everything it has come to represent: the endurance of Lincoln, the glow of the bicentennial, the obsession of collectors, the slow alchemy of time, the hope of dreamers, the invisible hum of atoms older than the world. When you look at it, you are looking at all of that at once, a star's ashes shaped into a nation's memory, wrapped in human longing, defying oblivion. And if someday, on some distant morning, the finest 1970 60 Lincoln cent is lifted from its slab under bright auction lights, and a room full of breathless collectors watches the bidding climb higher and higher until it reaches numbers no one thought possible, until it becomes the first cent to sell for $195 million, they will not be paying only for metal. They will be paying for time itself, for everything that ever touched it, everything it ever meant, and everything it will mean long after we are gone. And then, when the bidding ends, and the room falls silent, and someone holds that coin in white cotton gloves, they may feel something strange, the faint hum of eternity inside a sliver of copper no bigger than a fingertip. And in that moment, they will know the truth that has been hidden in plain sight all along, that this small, ordinary 1970 60 Lincoln cent was never ordinary at all. It was always extraordinary. It was always waiting to be seen. It was always destined to outlive us, to carry our stories into forever, and to shine on in the dark long after everything else has faded.